Welcome back to Tech Stack for all you tech enthusiasts. This is part 6 of our Angular 22 series. In this video, we'll learn about routing in Angular. Routing is the process of navigating between different pages or views in an Angular application without reloading the entire page. When we create a new Angular project, Angular provides an app.routes.ts file by default. This file is used to define the routes for our application. Let's add a route object inside the routes array. Let's add the path property and set it to an empty string. Path property defines the URL path that we want to use for a route. Let's change the path from an empty string to employee. This means our employee page will be available at the employee URL path. Let's add the component property and set it to employee component. The component property tells Angular which component should be displayed when a user navigates to this route. Let's copy this route object and paste 3 more instances of it. We'll use these additional route objects to create more routes in our Angular application. For the second route, change the path to project. This means Angular will use the project URL to navigate to the project page. Change the component to project component. For the third route, change the path to data binding. This route will be used to navigate to our data binding page. Change the component to data binding component. For the fourth route, let's set the path to variables. This route will be used to navigate to our variables page. Set the component to variables component. Open the terminal and run the ngserve command to start our Angular development server. It may take a little time for the application to start, so please be patient while Angular builds the project. Before we test our routes, let's remove all the existing code from the app.html file. This will give us a clean page to work with while testing our routing. Let's copy the URL and test our route directly in the browser. Add the route path to the URL and check if the corresponding component is displayed. So far, nothing is showing on the page because we don't have a router outlet. Now, let's open the app.ts file and configure the router so Angular knows where to display our routed components. Add RouterOutlet to the imports array. RouterOutlet is an Angular directive that acts as a placeholder where Angular displays the component for the current route. Open the app.html file and add the RouterOutlet element. This is where Angular will display the component that matches the current URL route. Let's test it in the browser. Open the project URL and check whether the project component is displayed through the RouterOutlet. As you can see, the project component is now displayed on the page. Let's test another route. Open the employee URL. As you can see, the employee component is displayed correctly. Now, let's test the data binding route. As you can see, the data binding component is working correctly. Now, let's test the variables route. As you can see, all of our routes are working perfectly. Angular is successfully displaying the correct component for each URL path. Now, let's search for Bootstrap npm in the browser. We want to add a Bootstrap navbar to our Angular application, so we'll first find the Bootstrap package and then install in our project. Open the first link and copy the installation command for Bootstrap. We'll use this command to install Bootstrap in our Angular project. Let's paste the copied command into the terminal and run it. This will install Bootstrap in our Angular project so we can use its components, including the navbar. Installation may take a little time, so please be patient while npm downloads and installs the Bootstrap package. Open the package.json file. After the installation is complete, you'll see the Bootstrap package listed under the dependencies section. As you can see, Bootstrap has been installed successfully, and its entry is now listed in package.json. We are using Bootstrap version 5.3.8. Open the angular.json file. We need to add the Bootstrap CSS file path to the styles array so Angular can include Bootstrap styles in our application. Now, to find the bootstrap.min CSS file, open the Node Modules folder and find the Bootstrap folder. Inside it, we'll locate the CSS file we need. find the CSS folder. This folder contains the Bootstrap CSS files that we can include in our Angular application. Search for bootstrap.min.css inside the CSS folder. This is the minified Bootstrap style sheet that we'll add to the styles array in angular.json. Copy the relative path of bootstrap.min.css and add it to the styles array in the angular.json file. This tells Angular to load the Bootstrap CSS globally in our application. Before we use the path, replace the backslashes with forward slashes. Angular expects the CSS path to use forward slashes, so make sure the Bootstrap file path is formatted correctly. Now, let's apply a Bootstrap navbar to our Angular application. Open the browser and search for the Bootstrap navbar. Open the first link from the search results. This will take us to the Bootstrap navbar documentation. Bootstrap provides multiple navbar examples, so let's scroll down and explore them. We'll choose a simple and suitable navbar for our Angular application. Let's copy this navbar. It looks perfect for our application. Now, paste the copied code into the app.html file. This will add the Bootstrap navbar structure to our Angular application. We are using a Bootstrap navbar because it provides a clean, responsive, and professional navigation bar without requiring us to build all the styling from scratch. Let's run the ngserve command in the terminal to start our Angular application and see the Bootstrap navbar in the browser. Copy the URL generated by ngserve and open it in the browser. This will allow us to preview our Angular application. Perfect. As you can see, our Bootstrap navbar is now displayed correctly in the Angular application. Before moving ahead, as you know, we've started our Angular 22 series, from beginner to advanced. Learn practical skills to grow your development career. Subscribe and join the journey. Let's update all the anchor text in the navbar to match the different sections and pages of our Angular application. For the first anchor, let's change the text to project. This will represent the project page in our Angular application. For the second anchor, let's change the text to variables. For the third anchor, let's change the text to data binding. For the fourth anchor, let's change the text to employee. Remove all the ref attributes from these anchor tags because we will use Angular routing instead of regular HTML links. Remove the disabled class from the navbar links. Then, let's test the application in the browse. As you can see, the anchor text has been updated successfully, and our navbar now shows the correct page names. We'll use Angular's RouterLink directive to connect our navbar links to our routes. First, let's open the app.ts file. Add RouterLink to the imports array. RouterLink is an Angular directive that allows us to navigate between different routes in our application without reloading the page. Open the app.html file and add the RouterLink directive to our navbar links. Let's copy RouterLink and paste it into each anchor tag. We'll then set the correct route path for each link so Angular knows where to navigate. For the employee link, set the RouterLink to employee. This will navigate to the employee component when we click the employee link. Update the RouterLink for the data binding link to data binding. Update the RouterLink for the variables link. Update the RouterLink for the project link. Now, let's test all the navbar links in the browser and make sure each one navigates to the correct page. As you can see, the URL changes each time we click a different navbar link, and Angular displays the corresponding component without reloading the page. Let's test the empty URL. Remove the route path and open the base URL in the browser to see what happens. As you can see, when we open the empty URL, only the navbar is displayed because we haven't handled the default route yet. Let's fix this by configuring the empty path to show the appropriate component. Let's add a new route object to the routes array. We'll use this route to handle the empty URL. Add path to the new route object. This empty path represents the default URL of our Angular application. Let's use redirect to. The redirect to property tells Angular to redirect the user from one route to another. Set redirect to employee. This means whenever the user opens the empty URL, Angular will automatically redirect them to the employee route. Add path match. This tells Angular to redirect only when the entire URL path is empty. Set the value of path match to full. This ensures that Angular applies this redirect only when the complete URL matches the empty path. Enter the empty URL in the browser and test it. As you can see, we are redirected to the employee route, and the employee component is displayed successfully. Let's test an invalid URL by entering test in the browser. This route is not defined in our application. Nothing is displayed. So let's inspect the page and check the browser console to see if Angular is showing any routing errors. We can see the error cannot match any routes. This happens because the URL we entered doesn't match any of our defined routes. To handle invalid paths, we'll create a new component and use a wildcard route to display it whenever the user enters an unknown URL. Scroll to the Pages folder, right-click it, and open an integrated terminal in this folder. We'll use this terminal to create our new component. Run the command ngg-cnotfound. This will generate a new not found component that we'll use to handle invalid or unknown routes. Open the HTML file for the not found component and add an h2 tag. Inside the h2 tag, add the text page not found. This message will be displayed whenever the user enters a URL that doesn't match any of our defined routes. Open the app.routes.ts file. We'll add a wildcard route here to handle any URL that doesn't match our existing routes. Add a new route object to the routes array and add the path property inside it. Set the path to double asterisk. In Angular, double asterisk is called a wildcard route. Add the component property to this route. Set it to the not found component. This tells Angular to display the not found page whenever an invalid URL is entered. Run the ng-serve command in the terminal to start the Angular application and test our wildcard route. Application is running successfully. Now, let's open the test URL in the browser. As you can see, the page not found message is now displayed. Our wildcard route is working correctly and successfully handles invalid URLs. This brings us to the end of part 6 of our Angular 22 series. In this video, we learned about Angular routing, created multiple routes, added a Bootstrap navbar, used RouterLink for navigation, handled the default route with redirect to, and handled invalid URLs using a wildcard route. If you're passionate about learning new technologies, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Tech Stack, and keep learning new skills. Thank you. And remember, consistency is the key to success.